Hi, fellow Management 471 students. My name is Dave Kowaleski, and while reading Chapter 2 this week, I was compelled to do a presentation on game theory, and I figured I would try to explain game theory in 3 minutes or less. So let's give it a shot. So game theory is a pretty great way to try to make an educated decision on whether or not you should go one strategy or a different strategy. But first, in order to understand the actual theory itself, you need to understand the common elements, and they're pretty basic. The first is simply to identify the competitors or identify the parties involved. The second is the identification of at least two, sometimes more, strategies that each of these competitors or parties involved could have or could implement. And the third is to try to predict what the results would be for party A versus party B, implementing a particular strategy, and then maybe the reaction of, from that competitor for the implementation of said strategy. All right, let's see if we can do this in 2 minutes. So I figured I would use a real-world example of what's about to happen actually in just a few months here for the holiday 2020 season. Two major competitors in the gaming console market, PlayStation and Microsoft, had to decide whether or not they were going to maintain their current systems or they were going to invest the resources and time to create and release new systems. And so using game theory, you could see that if PlayStation and Microsoft were both to maintain their systems, there would be no change in their market share, theoretic market share. Again, a $0 placement is just as a guess, just to kind of paint the picture. However, if PlayStation was to release a new system while Microsoft maintained, in theory, PlayStation would gain $1 in market share or profit, or again, just a placeholder, but just to show that they have a positive response to it, whereas Microsoft would lose $100. They would be losing market share because PlayStation was first to market with a newer system, and demand would probably start going that direction. Vice versa, if Microsoft was to release while PlayStation maintained, PlayStation would lose $100 in terms of market share, whereas Microsoft would gain $1. And then if both were to release at the same time, both companies would actually see a negative. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they lose money, but it just means that they've both chosen to increase competition in the market, and typically at that point, the consumer is actually winning. The consumer has options. The consumer can buy one of two different options, and so the price points need to be lowered to make sure that they are competitive. And so it's actually what's going to happen in the real world. Both systems or both companies decided to release new systems, and they caught up with one another, and they're releasing about the same time, so there won't be any first to market benefits. And the consumer is going to end up being the winner come holiday 2020. And I imagine many families across the United States as well as across the world will be purchasing new gaming systems from these, either one of these two companies. So I hope this did a good job at giving just another example similar to the one in the textbook, and something that maybe we can relate to. Thanks.